Just watched the second and last presidential debate of this cycle between Trump and Biden. Usually there would be three presidential debates. Of course, the last one from Miami was cancelled because of Trump's health. Um, Tonight felt like a more normal debate. It was still tense. It was still quite I wouldn't call it gentlemanly exactly, but it was more normal compared to certainly the last one. So this one took place in Nashville and was moderated by, I'm just getting her name up now, just double check this. I must admit I haven't heard of this lady before. Kristen Welker, NBC White House correspondent. Um, so I think she'd done a fairly good job. One thing I found interesting was there was going to be a protocol tonight whereby the microphones would be cut off if interrupting was going on. Trump was better behaved this time. He didn't interrupt as much. He respected the rule more or less. There was a bit of talking over at debate points, but maybe that was meant to be open debate. So I didn't really see that rule get utilised, or maybe it didn't need to be utilised. It did feel a lot tidier than the first one. Um, Overall, I think Biden maybe had the edge. It wasn't an outstanding performance by Biden. I still think there's times that Biden's age shows. I think sometimes he stumbles his words, and that could be forgiven if it's now and again, but in the case of Biden, it happens quite a lot. Um, and that's a little bit concerning. I do think the health of an incoming president, potential incoming president, is very important. Um, Biden, of course, is 77, and that's not to say that that rules him out. Um, there's times he's pretty energetic and on form, but I do think that he is sometimes less coherent than he was 10 years ago. That's my honest perception. Um, However, I still give Biden the edge because what Joe Biden does, whatever you think of his politics, he is absolutely a more unifying figure. I think the Republicans and the Trump campaign are trying very, very hard to make out that he's in the pocket of the far left. And, they've done this with every Democratic candidate going way back to Clinton and beyond. Oh, you elect this guy, America will become a communist state. It's a bit pathetic, actually. Biden is not that far left at all. Um, he's probably more left wing than, for example, Bill Clinton, um, who I would place as a moderate, but he's by no means far left, say, compared to Bernie Sanders or others. And as he has said repeatedly, he is now the Democratic Party. There was a strong point I thought Biden had when he said he defeated his rivals within the Democratic Party to become the nominee because he won those arguments. So that kind of, in my view, floored Trump's argument. Um, Trump also has this tendency to keep homing in on this Hunter Biden thing. I'm not going to say there's no merit to that. There may well be. Someone who I respect, Majid Nawaz, posted a link earlier from, I don't know if it was the New York Times, but it was another left leaning publication that said actually Hunter Biden does have connections with China's surveillance system that is playing a role in the Uyghur concentration camps. So that absolutely does deserve scrutiny. I don't know if Hunter Biden's corrupt or not. I don't know anything about the man, but definitely those questions need to be asked because if any American is complicit in China's concentration camps, that would be an absolute travesty. I have to say, though, on the issue of China, I don't think either Trump or Biden are outstanding. There will be some people out there who say that Biden's weak, it's going to be Beijing Joe, he's going to be subservient to China, and Trump's great. I don't read it that way. I don't think Biden's great, but I don't think Trump has been consistently tough on China. Certainly, Trump initiated the trade war, or rather escalated it. And a lot of his rhetoric is tough, and he's absolutely right to blame China for the basis of coronavirus. And actually, Trump had one rather. clever moment when he said, "By the way, it's not Joe's fault either." I thought that was quite unusually diplomatic for Trump. Um, I still believe the Democrats are far too soft on China. Whatever Biden has said about human rights in the past, he is still, when China questions come up, he still always reverts it back to Trump. I think Trump and, excuse me, Biden and Harris and the Democratic Party need to be a lot more vocal specifically about China, not just because they want to make Trump look bad or to say we're better than Trump, actually say specifically what they would do. Now, Biden was asked this question and he did give some answers, but I didn't think they were overwhelmingly impressive. I want to see an American president really, really taking a hard line on a more assertive and more belligerent CCP. And I'm not convinced that Biden will. I don't believe he's the puppet of China that he's made out to be. But by the same token, I don't think he's, frankly, strong enough on China. There was a bit that Trump said when he stopped flights coming in from China. He was called xenophobic by the Democrats. Well, that's true, he was. Biden says it was about a different context. I don't think he really won that point because the Democrats did do that because they kept it in with, oh, this xenophobic president is against all immigration. I think the Democrats badly downplayed the China role in coronavirus. Having said that, Trump has downplayed coronavirus itself. In the early critical weeks of this, he was totally downplaying the pandemic. And tonight he misquoted a figure from a British academic study that said if nothing was done, 2 million Americans would die. Now, I think Trump was taking that out of context to try and downplay his disastrous handling of this. And okay, China is foremost responsible for inflicting this thing on the world, but I still think leaders should be judged on their own attitudes. And Trump has consistently downplayed the seriousness of this pandemic. Biden was very good on empathy. This is something, whatever you think of him, he really does have a way of, Trump calls it a politician's answer, but he says there's people around your table in all likelihood who are no longer here. A quarter of a million Americans almost have died. Um, that's a very serious thing. I was trying to work out there where this would rank as in among the deadliest American events. The American Civil War would probably be number one. World War Two, I believe it was 280,000 Americans died. Spanish flu, I'm not sure what the figure was, but coronavirus is building every day. Um, Trump flippantly said people are learning to live with this. Biden very astutely said people, Mr. President, dying from this. Um, Trump didn't do a great job of defending his record. I mean, he came out with this regurgitated line that he's done more for black Americans than anyone since Lincoln. But he isn't really substantiating that claim. He's not giving many reasons why. And I think, as Rick Santorum said on CNN, maybe Republicans are frustrated that Trump isn't actually boasting more or at least giving examples of where he has done well. He just spends all his time focusing on attacking Biden and Hunter Biden. Um, but then again, I would say the same thing could be leveled against Biden. I think Biden and Harris need to really show what they would do. The nature of a campaign in a democratic country is that you're going to be contrasting and comparing yourself against your rival. But if Biden wins, Trump's going to be history's man. So I want to see what is a President Biden going to do about China, because regardless of what Trump says or does now, all the indication is Biden will win. I want to see Biden really taking leadership on this, and that's got nothing to do with Trump. Um, so when it comes to China, I mean, Trump cannot be held up as consistently tough on China. This is a man who has praised Xi Jinping. He praised the Uyghur concentration camps. So I don't think Trump has much moral high ground when it comes to human rights. Now, I give Trump credit when it comes to Taiwan. I do give Trump credit for that. But that contrasts with, pandering to Kim Jong Un. So what I find with Donald Trump when it comes to foreign policy, I think it could be summed up in one word: inconsistency. Inconsistency. Trump has praised dictators whilst at the same time rebuking them. There's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on with this president. He claims that he's the least racist person in the room. He isn't really given any basis for that. Um, as Rick Santorum said, maybe Trump has done things for black colleges and so on, but really the most progressive president on black rights since Abraham Lincoln, more so than Lyndon Johnson, who passed the Civil Rights Act. That's dubious. Now, leaving aside the candidates, one question did irritate me, I have to say. The moderator asked about, and otherwise I think she'd done a good job, but she asked this ridiculous question about, Mr. President, you have called Black Lives Matter hateful. Isn't this polarizing to the American public? This is where I have a big problem. Why is so many segments of the media, she represents NBC, so determined to protect Black Lives Matter? Trump's response was a valid one. He said when he first came across Black Lives Matter, they were literally shouting, pigs burning blankets. That's true, referring to the police. Why is so many segments of the media determined to defend this rather odious organization, this rather odious movement? I'm sick and tired of Black Lives Matter being presented as a civil rights movement. They have very racist components. Um, Now, Trump should be scrutinized for his bizarre comments like stand by regarding the Proud Boys and claiming to not know far right organizations. He'd done that in his last campaign where he claimed he didn't know who the KKK was. But Black Lives Matter is not a moderate, reasonable organization. This is an organization that hasn't condemned the criminality in the midst. They haven't condemned the racism in the midst. So what Trump said wasn't wrong. And so the way that question was framed was to make it look like Black Lives Matter was a reasonable organization. It's not. Um, so that's where you start. And of course, I'm watching CNN analysis now. For you. CNN has a very clear liberal left bias. There's no question about that. So I try to think subjectively without being influenced by what they're saying. My honest take on this is Trump is still acting like someone who believes he is losing and who comes across as having some strong moments, but still being the underdog because he is the underdog. I think Biden could be stronger. I think Biden could do better. There's times that I mean, I appreciate it. Actually, he used to have a stammering problem, so I don't know if it's that resurfacing, in which case I'd be more sympathetic. But there are times when you wonder what Biden's really talking about. He's not always clear and he's not always coherent in what he's actually trying to say. Um, like he sort of comes out with things and think, what did he mean? What exactly is he saying there? Then there's other times he's very strong and very clear and very empathetic. It's one of Biden's strongest points. He really does empathize, and he has repeatedly said he's going to be a president for all Americans. So the Trump campaign is going to try and frame him as a puppet of the far left. There's already indication that portraying Biden as weak on crime isn't working. An interesting point tonight, and maybe Trump could have got the upper hand on this, is attacking Biden on his 1994 crime bill, which is very unpopular in the black community. That may have been one of Trump's stronger points, but overall, I think it went to Biden. It was testy at times. I can't say it was a calm debate compared to, say, Clinton Dole in 1996, but it was certainly more tidy and ordered than the last one. Um, I still believe that Biden is far more presidential, far more statesmanlike, and far more empathetic to ordinary Americans. But that doesn't mean I am happy with all of his positions. I think Biden and Harris need to be a lot more vocal about China, not just to say, oh, well, this is what Trump's done. They need to show what they will do. And I'm not convinced that Biden is overly assertive in that area. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe he is, but we'll see. We'll see. Because China right now, under Xi Jinping and his FUG regime, is absolutely determined to undermine Western democracies. And the things that are going on there are repugnant. I give the Trump administration some credit, but I think more of that's coming from the State Department. I mean, all the concerns about human rights are coming from Mike Pompeo. Um, Trump praised the concentration camp. That's a fact. So there's an inconsistency there. But I give Trump credit on Taiwan. And things like this, where Trump has been quite bold and does deserve credit, Biden will need to match that.